Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection. What I want to do today is take a look at some luxury watches, some sort of mainstream luxury watches, and look at more affordable alternatives that are probably some you've heard of, some you may not have, but they have similar functionality, but they cost a lot less. Let me start with what I'm not going to do. Up here you can see the Rolex and then the Hornborough. Now the Hornborough is a watch that looks a lot like the Submariner. It's got the Cyclop, has a rotating bezel. It even has the same type of hands, the Mercedes hands, and then the stick, and then it has the same indexes too, the little circles and triangles and rectangles and so forth. Now, this is what I'm not going to do, and I'll tell you why. Now, Hornborough is not a fake Rolex, but it is very much of a copy of a lot of Rolex features. You can see right at the top it says Hornborough, so it's not considered something that is in any way a fake, but it's really sort of a type of watch that's very inexpensive parts. This particular one is from China with Chinese movements and so forth. One thing I like about it, I do like the, you can see the movement through the back. So this is not the kind of watch comparison I want to do, because one is really almost a clone of the other one in terms of appearance. Now, what I'd like rather is something like this. Here's a Vacheron Constant 10 luxury sports watch, and next to it is a Zen. And this Zen, I guess is how you pronounce it, a Zen watch that is very sporty and doesn't look a thing like the overseas, and it's not trying to. Now the overseas is almost $21,000, $20,900. The Zen is 1703, and it has a Sealander 2201 movement. Now the Sealander 2201 is a clone of the ETA, so you're talking not about sort of, well, they got sort of a crummy movement. They're really pretty good movements. The ETAs are good movements, and the Sealander movements are too, because they were licensed by ETA to make movements like this when they were trying to keep up with the demand. Now another one is on the more formal side. Here you have a Patek Philippe Calatrava, sort of a very standard kind of dress watch. $37,850. That's just, whoop, it's way up there in terms of affordability. But if you want to watch a good dress watch, you don't have a lot of googags on it. You have a fairly simple one, and this one by Hamilton is a great example. It's called the American Classic and Dramatic Automatic. It has an ETA 2892. It's actually ETA 2892-2. Good movement, good solid movement. It has the date window down at 6 o'clock. And it's one of those ones, you could put this in a very formal situation, you're dressed up and so forth. It has a sort of an understated salmon dial, $845. So you get a good watch. It's not fancy, it's made of steel instead of gold, but it does the job. Now these next two, this appears to go against what I wanted to do, but it really isn't. It's I didn't want to have one watch look like the other one. Now there are some similarities between the Rolex and a Christopher Ward Sealander GMT. The reason that I picked the Sealander GMT, it's a new model. The model shown there from Rolex is their new model. But then when you look at the dial, you can see more differences and similarities. Yes, they have a white dial. That's no big deal. time it or the date at 6 o'clock instead of at 3 o'clock. There's no cyclop window. The hands are different. The tip of the GMT hand does look a lot like the tip of the Rolex one, but they're really not the same in certain details. So, but this is a very good buy if you want a GMT. The thing I like about the Polar Rolex is that it's like super easy to see the time and the GMT time on it. And this is what the Christopher Ward's Sealander does. So it's sort of getting a little too close of what I want to avoid, but it really isn't. You look at the indexes, you look at the hands, even the sort of the style of the numbers on the bezel are different, a little different. Okay, moving right along. Now this one here, this is sort of like, okay, you want a nice office watch, and I looked at the Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Ultra Thin Reserve de Mars, and this watch is one I really happen to like a lot. It's $9,350 in stainless steel. The reason I like it is that it has a power reserve indicator, and it has a hand date. I like hand dates a lot. And it's just a nice, clean, clear watch. You can take a look at it and see if you're sitting still for a long time. I think your power reserve indicator will drop down. On the other hand, you have a Nomos. Now, this particular Nomos is less than half the price of the Jaeger-LeCoultre, but it's not cheap. Nomos has a very good brand. In fact, Philippe Dufour thinks that they make the best watches under $10,000, and maybe they do. I'm not going to argue with Philippe Dufour. It's 37 millimeters. They have the movement they have in there, and this is why this one is sort of special. The DUW 4401 manual is one of their own manufactured movements, and it's a good one. 3780 is not cheap, but it's something that is, when something is less than half as much, it looks like a pretty good deal. So this is another way you can go. Look at something that, yes, it's not one of the tip-top models or brands, but it's a good one. Okay, now this next one is looking for something that's sort of a informal kind of field watch, everyday watch. And the one I came up with was the Glashütte Original 60s Annual Edition. Now, the annual editions of the 60s, they have some amazingly different kinds of dials on them. Now, this particular dial is this blue-gray is, it's a pretty nice one, but it's not a flashy one. It's one that can sort of be a good day-to-day office watch without anything big about it. Now, the Hamilton, the khaki, looks more like a field watch, but it's also a good day-to-day, everyday watch. The reason why, you have the double tracks of 1 through 12, and then the 24-hour one next to it. It's got both of them have center seconds, and the Hamilton, you get a date window too. So this is something I think, now $575 is a lot less, but you can find better deals than $575. That's and probably the same thing would be true for the annual editions. Okay, now this next one, it's the last one we're going to talk about, is the Chronograph. Now this has sort of a double-edged sword. This Longines has an Avigation Big Eye Chronograph, and it's got the Longines Caliber 688 in it, which is, since they're owned by they're owned by Swatch, it's some version of ETA that they have in there, most likely some version of the 7750. Now, on the other hand, when you look at the Parmigiani Fleurier, you've got a $11,900, almost $12,000 watch. Beautiful watch, very much of a of a true luxury chronograph. Now, the thing about the Tonda Metrograph, for some reason, it wasn't very popular. I mean, not as, I mean, it's like a lot of Parmigianis, excellent watches, just not popular. This one, though, I think is really an exception. And what I found, if you look around, you can find some great deals on it. So this one's $5,000 on one of the other, just looking around, and it's had one for sale. I found one for $49.99, $5,000 about. Same thing with the Longines. The list price is $26.25. I was able to find one easily for $17.96. So here you have two things that you can do. One is to find a brand that is not doesn't keep the price high, and the value stays the same, but the price is not as good in terms of what one would usually suggest. Same thing is true on the Longines. So these are alternatives, I think. Instead of saying, well, I gotta have the brand name, the status name, or so forth, you can still find some really, really good watches at far more affordable prices. Let me know what you think. I know there was some people say, why didn't you talk about this? Let me know what they are. And this is an invitation to subscribe, as always. And until next time, this is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Side, the art and science of watch collection.